Hello there, beautiful teachers, and welcome to another Vibrant Music Teacher Chat. It is so great to be back with you again, and if this is your first time joining us, please do let me know. I love to welcome new people. If we're just meeting, my name's Nicola Canton. I run a site called Vibrant Music Teaching and a blog called Colourful Keys. And on this show, every week we talk about a specific music teaching topic, unpack it together, have a chat, have a bit of a debate sometimes. We also cover some of the newest resources that are coming out for music teachers. We do a web review of a studio so that we can learn together about marketing. And we have an Ask Me Anything section at the end. So if you have a question about anything at all, just type the word question followed by your question, and I will come back to it in the last section. And if you're watching on the replay, you can still write your question in the comments, and I will come back to you as soon as I possibly can. So today's special topic is educating lifelong pianists. How do we do it? Is that what we all want? I think that it is. I think you're going to be on board with me. So how do we get there? We're going to be talking about a few considerations when it comes to creating these lifelong pianists in our studio and how we go about that and how we increase the chance that our students will enjoy music, appreciate music, maybe even play music for life, for the rest of their lives, because it enriches our lives so much and we want to spread that around, right? So tell me in the chat, as we go through here, tell me what you think the main considerations are. What's the difference between your students who do go on to play music, not necessarily professionally, but as a hobbyist, who you know continue to play for themselves, for parties, for whatever, versus the ones who quit and never come back to it, and maybe are the ones who say to us as parents, oh, I played until I was 18 and I stopped and I just never got back to it. What are the difference between those two? What do you think? We're gonna go through a few of my ideas around what increases the chances, but I'd love to hear from you first. Before we get there though, let's go through the latest news and goings on. Alright, so personally, in my personal news, I have been working on interviewing new students in my studio. So we are going back. I looked at the clock there as if it's going to tell me when I'm going back to teaching. It's not, but I think it's 3 weeks until we go back. Yeah, that sounds right. So I have this week. Next week I'm off completely. I'm away from the office as well, and we've no show. And then the week after that is my last week off teaching, but very much in office mode. And then I will be back to regular old teaching life. I like that I get the chance to miss everyone in the summer, and I have taught previously somewhat in the summer. This summer I took it completely off because sometimes you just need to say, nope, don't need it. Even a few students, I need a complete break. So that's what I needed this summer, and that's what I took. And I hope if you're in the same shoes as me that you were able to do that as well, if that's what's going to be best for you. I needed to regroup a little bit and renew my enthusiasm, and I'm going to be coming back strong in September. Anyway, so that means we've been interviewing new students or meeting with new students' parents on Zoom at the moment. Normally I would do this in the studio, but that's an unnecessary risk for the type of meeting we're doing. So we've been talking on Zoom, meeting up with new parents, talking through the studio and what to expect, and getting them ready to start and fill those empty spots that we had. We did have a few extra because I have a second teaching space now. So the teachers that work for me at Colourful Keys, they're not only going to students' homes now, they're also sometimes teaching here. So we have a bit more availability, only a little bit, but there were a few spots to offer around. So that's the juggling I've been doing in the studio life. And Lydia's doing the same thing, so I hope your interview lesson goes well. It's definitely super fun. I love meeting new families and just learning like why they chose to get in touch with our studio specifically, like if they have referrals from other parents in our studio. That's always lovely to hear. One of them who they're actually going to be traveling across the city to us. They were referred by a teacher who almost ended up working here. He ended up moving because I think it was his girlfriend had a job offer abroad or something and he had to move, so he didn't start here, but he recommended us. So you never know where those referrals are going to come from, do you? Right. So yeah, that's been really fun on the studio side. Then I've also been preparing for the challenge. So if you haven't joined us for the challenge yet, it is on all this week. You can sign up at vibrantmusicteaching.com/empower. And you're going to remember that word based on our topic that we're going through later in the video. But vibrantmusicteaching.com/empower. Those watching live, someone might be able to type that in the chat for you just so you have it handy. But that is on all this week. So it's going to be closing in probably tomorrow morning, basically. So you need to sign up for it right away if you want to join us, because it is a 5-day challenge. So it's already started today. I hope it's enjoyable so far. It's definitely, I think, getting off to a great start with the discussions just kicking off at this stage. So that's great. And then I've also been doing my secret project, which I told you guys about here, but I haven't told anyone else about, which was the book that I'm going to be releasing. Any of my regulars remember what this is going to be about? This is a brand new book, and it's a very short one, and it is going to be for... I'm not going to leave time for you to guess. It's going to be for piano parents, or music parents, I should say. Any instrument. It doesn't refer to piano specifically. So that is called Practice Pi. And it's going to be for music parents to help them establish a practice routine, help their students practice effectively. It also goes through things like cultivating a listening habit to music in the family and actively listening to the music, not just leaving it in the background, but actually talking about it and trying different genres and all that kind of stuff. So it's called Practice Pi because it takes on a pie analogy throughout the book, and they're baking a practice pie. And I think it's really fun. Not to toot my own horn, but I think it's a really fun little book. I also think it's really easily digestible, pun very much intended, and I think it's hopefully going to help some parents out. It is very short. It's only 10,000 words, so if that means anything to you, that's short. Most people can read that in an hour, so it's not a big ask for parents. I'm hoping that parents will come across it and get it themselves, but I'm also hoping that maybe you as teachers can get a copy and have it in your studio lending library. Or one teacher that I work with said, oh, I want to go and get a bunch of copies and put it in the new student welcome pack. So the hard copy itself is going to be, let me see, in dollars, US dollars, it's going to be $9.95. So it's less than a tenner in US. It's only $8.95 in euro, etc. Right? So that is the hard copy version, and it's going to be a little handbook and hopefully very handy one. So I hope you're looking forward to that. Now, the biggest news on that is that the pre-order for the ebook version is now available, and it'll be trickling to all different stores. But if you're in Amazon.com, US based, then you can already pre-order the Kindle version. If you know you're going to want the Kindle one, not a hard copy, you can put in a pre-order and it'll come to you when it's released on August 23rd. It'll automatically download that way. I do appreciate you guys picking it up early on and reviewing it straight away, because that's going to help it reach more parents and just people in general, but therefore more parents. And what I really wanted to do is help all of you, because the more educated parents are, the better they are as support systems for your students, and it makes your job so much better, doesn't it? So hopefully you guys will get on over when it's released, or do the pre-order if you're on Kindle, and get one so you can review it right away. Those reviews really make a huge difference. You hear it all the time from people, and you might hear it for shops, you might hear it from people who do podcasts like me, that they want you to review them in iTunes. It is even more critical on Amazon than anywhere else. Reviews are the lifeblood of getting a book out there, reaching people on Amazon. They really are it. So I would appreciate your support when it comes out, and I hope that it'll help you. That's really the goal here. So that is on pre-order in Amazon, also on Kobo already, and I think Apple Books went live, but it kind of trickles through. So if you just search for my name or Practice Pi, it'll pop up when it's ready for pre-order if you want the digital version. Pre-orders are not possible for hard copies, okay? So it's only if you want the digital one, otherwise you need to wait until August 23rd and just order a hard copy then. Sound good? Okay. So the other thing I'm hoping to do with that, Carrie, thank you. The other thing I'm hoping to do with that is to do an audiobook version. So you guys have had all the inside scoop on this, and that'll continue. So the audiobook version, it's still not a fully definite, but I think I can do it. So that, I think, again, this is something I've wanted to do for ages for all of my books, because I'm an audiobook person, especially for non-fiction. Are any of you the same? I love audiobooks for non-fiction, and I get really irritated when things aren't available on audiobook in non-fiction, especially if they're not available, or if they're available but they're narrated by not the author, and the voice is like really robotic sounding, even though it is a real human. It's just so generic as to sound like a robot. Do you know what I'm talking about? I can't listen to it. I can't take it. I need someone with personality to keep my focus on it. I guess I just have a bit of a monkey brain. So that's something I've wanted to do for a while. However, the technology wasn't quite there because, long story, I won't get into the boringness of Amazon's Audible nonsense, but it looks like I can do it now, so I'm hoping to do it. Now I know, oh yay, glad you're excited. Yeah, about that possibility. I know as an Audible person that it probably won't make sense to you on your Audible subscription because it's short. So I will probably post it on Audible, but I'll also post it lots of other places, independent places where you can buy it for a reasonable fee rather than do it as part of your subscription, because we all want to get the most out of our credit, right? It's painful. You can still buy one off on Audible. Most people use a credit, and to buy something that's only like an hour or two with your credit is like, oh, what a waste. Anyone else feel that way? Anyway, I'm hoping to do that, and then maybe we'll be able to go back and do the other slightly longer books, the piano teaching ones, as audiobooks as well. So that's all my news on Practice Pi. I'm going to stop talking about that now, but I am really excited about that book, and I hope it's going to make a difference for all of us to have more supportive piano parents, music parents. The other news we have going on, so we have a new podcast, which was about posture tips at the piano for wiggly kids. So, as you know, I teach a lot of young beginners, and so this comes up quite a lot with teachers. How do we keep them on the bench? How do we keep them sitting at the right height and not kicking the piano? Anyone experience that? Yes? So that's what the new podcast is about. We also had a great guest post from Penelope Roskell. So if you haven't seen that yet, that's a super one to check out. That's on the Colourful Keys blog, or if you remember, it'll be in the Bright Notes edition if you prefer a downloadable version. But Penelope Roskell, wonderful author and just great, amazing pedagogue, especially in the area of technique. So I'm really excited to have her as our guest poster this month. We had a interview with Jeremy Siskind that was published here on YouTube last Thursday, if you want to check that out. Jeremy is just a really inspiring guy, specializes in jazz mostly, but talks about lots of different areas, and especially creative piano playing. And if you haven't met him before, go check him out. He's just so fun to listen to, honestly. We recorded that interview at NCKP at our virtual booth, and he was generous enough to let me broadcast it here on YouTube, so that's great. Our next chat is going to be about time management for piano teachers, And that is in 2 weeks. Okay, so this is our last break. Those of you who haven't been able to track us during the summer, it's been a bit here or there. But next week is my last week off for a little while. So, all things going well, obviously. If I'm ill or something, that'll be different. But next week is the last time that I'm going away on a Monday, so we won't have a chat then. We will the following week, the 23rd of August, and then we'll be in full term mode after that. So we'll definitely be ongoing from there. All right. Is everyone ready to talk about creating lifelong pianists? Let's do this. So many of us teachers mention that one of our goals is to create lifelong musicians, to increase the chance that our students continue to love music and play music for the rest of their lives, maybe our lives too. So how can we do that? We don't have control over them when they leave our studio. We don't even have control over them when they're in our studio. But how can we increase the chances that after they graduate from us, whenever that may be, that they might keep playing music for their own enjoyment or professionally? There are a few things that I think go into this. And there are 3 I's that I see as going into this. There's inspiration, information, and independence. The challenge that we're running, called Empowering Independent Learners, this week is about that 3rd I, independence. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's talk about the first 2, information and inspiration. So information is about competency, that they actually can do things at the piano or at their instrument, that they actually have the theory foundations, that they have proper training, that you're educating them well. I'm gonna guess you're probably doing that part. That's the part a lot of us have covered, and we get it. If we're not doing it in a certain way, we know how to investigate that for the most part. Inspiration is about listening to your students' goals and exploring things with them and allowing them the space to explore their own interests. It doesn't mean that they direct all of their learning, but it does mean that they have some say over it and that you're giving them different possibilities and evolving your lessons as your students progress and age, right? So those 2 are 2 pieces of the puzzle, but the independence piece is the one I mostly want to talk to you about today. So we're going to use our EMPOWER acronym here, starting with the letter E, which stands for enjoy the process. This is the first thing that I think we need for our students to gain independence in our studio. We need them to actually enjoy the practice process, not just the finished result, but that they relish the process. There's a quote from Yoga with Adriene, which is a YouTube channel here, where she said, "The process is the candy." The process is the candy. I think that so applies to piano. We need the process to be the candy. We need our students to evolve from a place of trying to get to the end, which they will naturally be at in the beginning. They're trying to have a polished, finished piece. They're trying to play it as fast as possible. They're trying to do whatever it takes to move on to the next piece because they just like putting those stickers on those pieces. And then gradually we need to move them over to enjoying the process. How many of you enjoy the practice process? If you don't, I doubt you're practicing anymore, are you? Because unless you have a regular gig, unless you have some kind of performance commitment, if you don't enjoy the process of practicing, you're not going to do it because you don't have an end goal. You don't have a deadline that's keeping you to task, right? So do you enjoy the process? Are you mindful during your practice? And are your students? Mindfulness can help us to enjoy the process because it helps us to fully experience the moment that we're in. When I think about mindfulness, I know it can be a bit of a buzzword these days. What I'm talking about is being in the moment. So, being aware of the feeling of playing, being aware of the sounds you're creating, really listening to your own music. When we discussed this on our recent challenge video, several teachers said that's the part I struggle with. My students don't listen to their own playing. One tip that's often suggested for this is recording them and having them listen back to themselves. And I think that's really useful. But it doesn't go far enough in some cases. So another part of this is that they listen to other people's music and get used to actively listening to that. So they're noticing things. They're picking out the different instruments and listening to the individual parts in something where an orchestra is playing. How do we go even beyond that? How do you get your students to listen to their own music? What do you think? I think it's one that we can continue to think about. We might even do a full show just on that one right there. P in empower is for perseverance. Perseverance. Do any of your students struggle with this? Another way to say this is grit. How do you get your students to keep going when things get hard, when things are challenging? Was there a time when you were young that you struggled with grittiness, with keeping going, when there was a piece that was challenging for you, when there was a new level of music that was difficult, or a particular technical challenge that came up in a piece? How do we encourage students to keep going? I think a big part of that is walking them through it in the lesson. And when they get to the challenging part, asking questions and prompting them rather than doing too much to push them through it. It's definitely a process where we gradually need to step back further and further away from owning the situation and pushing them through it, because in the beginning we might have to do some of that. But over time they can learn to persevere by themselves. Another thing that's very helpful for this, if you're a VMT member, a member of Vibrant Music Teaching, if you're not, you can sign up at vibrantmusicteaching.com. If you are already, our Gritty Critters series is great for this. These are games that are specifically designed to work on growth mindset and grit. The next element is options. We're talking about this right now in the challenge, and I think it's a really important thing that many of us don't consider, and it's one of those weird little parenting quirks or factors that can affect children in their music studies that we wouldn't think of as being a difference between two students, where one has an advantage over another. And I'm not here to say one way of parenting is best, but I'm sure you've experienced some parents who, when you see them interacting with their kid, they give them loads of choices, right? They're saying, well, do you want to continue piano next week? Do you want to come back again? And you're thinking, she's 4, just tell her she's coming back. Or they're giving them too few choices and you feel like everything is decided for them. Now, that'll vary in different parts of their life, but I believe that students, kids, need to gradually be taught to make choices for themselves. Are you giving your students opportunities to make choices? Do they have ownership over which pieces they learn beyond the beginner level? Do they have ownership over that? Can they choose which books they're doing? Can they choose what kinds of projects they're doing? Or if they want to explore improv or different areas? Small choices and big choices all build upon this. If you have a student who really struggles with making choices, who when you say, would you like to do this or this, they say, I don't know, or I don't care, or nothing, just a shrug, then giving them smaller choices can be a great starting point. It may be that they haven't experienced this a lot outside of music lessons. So give them A or B choices. Would you like to do this thing or that thing? And make them about small things. Just little things that are going to last 30 seconds of time in the beginning if you need to. And then from there you can expand it outwards till they are choosing their pieces and their books, and they can choose from 3 or 4 options rather than just one or two. You need two to make a choice. The next letter stands for who I am. Do your students see themselves as musicians? And at what age do you think you saw yourself as a musician? When did that happen for you? Can you remember a specific moment? You know, I was just listening to an interview today with Maya Shankar. Have any of you heard of Maya Shankar? She was on the track to be a very good violinist when she was younger. And when she was, I believe, 17, 18, she was going to be going on a scholarship or getting into an elite college anyway. And she injured her hand and basically was told that there's no way that this is going to heal to the point where you can still consider this your career. So she went in a completely different direction. But when she heard that, and she was fine in the end, if you know her story, she did very well for herself. She ended up working at the White House. But when she heard that is when she realized that this was it. She said, I was a violinist more than I was Maya. That's what she said in this interview. And I thought that was so powerful. That was more of her identity than her name to her. And we don't need our students to feel that powerfully about it. But if we can get our students to feel more like they are musicians, they're much more likely to continue for life because it's a part of their life. It's a part of who they are as people. It's a part of what makes them them. The next thing, which I believe can help with the previous thing, is ensemble skills. Do your students have the ability to play with others? Have they played duets with other students, not just with you as a teacher, but with other students? Can they play along with backing tracks, or can they play in a band? Because if they can do those things, music might become part of their social life. A good example of this, or it's not an example anymore, but I used to go to an Irish dancing class once a week. It's set dancing, which means group dancing, not river dance kind. I used to do that kind. More recently, I did the group kind. And on the break in that class, amateur musicians would bring along their trad instrument. Now, I didn't join in this because I don't play anything, tin whistle or accordion or anything that's super appropriate for this, but they would get together and just have a jam session during the 10-minute break while everyone else just sat around and chatted. That's the kind of thing that I want to see my students just be happy to jump in with. Maybe they don't play piano, but they see that opportunity and they say, I wonder what it's like to play a piano accordion, and they pick one up at a secondhand sale and they just give it a go each week. So without ensemble skills, without being comfortable playing with others, they're less likely to do that. And then lastly, roots. I want my students to have roots in every area of music. I want them to have experienced different genres of music, different ways of playing music, lead sheets, reading, improv, playing by ear, composing their own tunes. I often talk about this as opening all the doors. And in this analogy, we'll talk about it as being roots. Because I believe if you have all these different roots going all different directions, it means that your tree can grow a new branch. So it's strong enough to grow a branch fully in the improv direction if that's the way they want to go. But they have roots in all different areas of music, so they can branch off in different directions. If they just have one, like a taproot going down, they're much less likely to be able to sustain long-term growth, right? And we need to keep growing if we're going to be musicians for life. So let's consider each of those things as we think about creating independent musicians, Let's also make sure they have inspiration, they are inspired to make music in their own way and at each stage of their journey, and that they have the information, the solid grounding, and the roots that mean that they're capable of making music for life. Okay, we're going to go into our web reviews next. As a reminder, here's what we're looking for. We want these websites, or this website, it's one today, to have enough text on it, a clear call to action, consistent branding, no more than a couple of fonts and a couple of colors, showcase the teacher in question and what they're really like, not just a generic version of a teacher, hopefully have some real photos of them in their studio, and use a simple menu structure. So let's have a look at the website. Okay, so this is Pianista Music Studio Limited. The website is pianista.co.uk. I'm quite impressed with that URL. I know it's .co.uk, but still, Pianista. That's very nice and succinct. Anyway, so we arrive here, and let's just do our first impressions first. So, right away, what kind of studio do I think this is? It doesn't give me a huge amount of personality. Not that it's a negative personality either, just doesn't say it's one way or the other. If I were to guess, it's very amateur friendly, maybe adult friendly, not super classical focus, exam based, that kind of thing. No reason you couldn't do exams, but you see what I'm saying. And also not super jazzy or improv-y or anything like that. I like the photo here. And okay, so this is our main call to action. Request your free introductory lesson. Rather than click here, I would just change the text there. So book now, perhaps. I would also see if you can move this up the page, because I suspect on a screen that's a different size to mine, this might get cut off. So you really wouldn't have a call to action on your home page. You have this one in the corner, but I like to see one somewhere in the center. So I'd maybe move these things up if you can. Even put the button above, maybe the text, something like that. Then we have a nice simple menu structure, so I really like it. Student portal is good. Often people, I'm guessing that's an MMS login because that's what we often see. Often people, though, label that something that I find quite confusing. Student portal makes it quite clear that it's for current students to me, so that's great. We've got piano lessons and harpsichord lessons. I'm just curious about the harpsichord, so... Cool. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what my question would be if I wanted to take harpsichord lessons. And this may not be true for people who don't really realize that practice happens, so for people not in the know, but if they have some knowledge, I'm thinking, do I need a harpsichord at home? That's my first thought. I don't know if anyone else would think that too, but that's what occurred to me straight away is I want to know if I need one or if I can practice on my piano and just play harpsichord in the studio, or if you recommend getting a keyboard and using a harpsichord sound. Like, I'm just riffing here, but that would be my question. Okay, little tip here though. The bullets, I would align those left. Never center bullets, it just looks a little bit funny. Great little quote there. If you can get a photo of Yuri, if that's possible, definitely put her photo there. That'll mean a lot more to people. But otherwise it looks great. Really well laid out website. Let's check out the about page. Nice, really good. You do have photos on these ones, that's great. Yeah, and I actually love that the photos are very real, so none of them look like, not even stock photos, but like headshots. I really like just a candid photo for a testimonial because it makes it look like they wrote it and snapped a photo on their phone. Even if that's not what happened, that's the appearance, and that's nice. It makes it look more genuine. Okay, I love it. So I'm going to give you a couple of little things, but that's only because you're doing so well with this site. I'm going to come up with some extra stuff. So it's that button that I would question. And the logo, font size. So see the music studio? That's just very small. I would either just remove it or make it readable. Because tiny text, it just makes you think, like, what does it say? And it's an image, so if I have sight difficulties, chances are I can't read this, and I don't know whether it has alt text. It might, but it might be quite frustrating for me. So I would just question whether you need that at all, or whether it can be made bigger on the logo. But I like the little piano. I think it's cute. The tagline, take this or leave this, but I would say helping kids and adults to play music they love, rather than this way around, because to me this says they're already playing music and then I teach them to love it. Now I know no one's really going to think that, but it does make me do a little bit of a double read. So yeah, take or leave that advice, but that's what I would put there. Okay, cool. It looks great. Well done on it. I really think you did a great job here. Congratulations. Okay, let's get to our questions. We just have one so far. If you have an extra question to type in, please do write it. You can ask me about anything at all. It can be about whatever. How to ban people on YouTube or anything else. And just type it starting with the word question so it comes up on my screen there. Lydia had a question. She said, what's the best way to get reviews from parents or students to add to my website? I feel strange asking them to email me reviews. Okay, Lydia, it does feel strange, but I'm afraid you just have to do the slightly vulnerable thing and just ask for them. People don't know you want them. They're not going to send you unsolicited quotes, so ask for them. I like to do it through a form because I feel like that feels, I don't know, more formal, better somehow. I don't really know why I prefer that to just a straight up email. But I do like to have a form. So just a Google form would do the job, or I do a form that's embedded on my site. And on the form, I ask, obviously for their email, if it's going to be quoted back to them, so who it is, and then specific questions like, they're the go-tos, but they're the go-tos because they work. So if you were to recommend Lessons or Colourful Keys to a friend, what would you say? Or what's one thing that you've really loved about the way we approach things here? That kind of thing. Specific questions are useful because the quote you don't want is, Lydia's great. I mean, that's wonderful if they think Lydia's great, right? But we actually want specifics. Specifics are more believable. So if we can get them to say that, oh, I was really worried about bringing my child to lessons because she struggles with her ADHD in school, but Lydia's methods have meant that that's totally not a problem for her, and piano is her favourite part of the week. Something like that is so specific to a situation is very useful. So anything you can do to ask questions that prompt that, and that's why I like a forum, because it feels a little bit more straightforward to ask specific questions in that format where there's a box for this question and for that question. Again, it can be very simple, just a Google form will do. I also ask parents to fill in a Google review while I'm at that. So I often say, here's a form you can fill in. I also love Google reviews. If you can do either one or both, that's amazing. So I give both those options. Some people, they'll do the Google review faster. Some people are baffled by Google Maps and won't get that at all. And some will do both in one go, and that's really, really lovely. But the Google reviews, if you're on Google Maps, which is Google My Business, if you're on that, Google reviews are very helpful because they'll make you show up at the top of the list, basically. They do a good job of that. So it's really nice to have reviews on there as another option. And that's another way you can mention it, is to say, hey, reviews really help us to show up higher on the Google Maps, so I really appreciate it. It's helping our business to thrive so we can provide more services to you. You know, you always want to bring it back to why this is good for them, but you do just have to make the ask with these things. Same thing with referrals. You know, people often talk about referral incentives. And I think part of that is to incentivize parents, like that's part of teachers' instinct. But I think often teachers ask about that because they'll feel better asking for a referral if they're offering an incentive. And it might not actually make it more likely that the parent gives a referral. It just makes you feel better is the result. And that's fine, but you know, it's not worth giving out vouchers if it would have been fine just to say, hey, would you mind passing on my name? I have 2 spots available. That's the more vulnerable option, but it might be even more effective. Okay, thank you all for joining me today. It's been super fun, as always. We will be back here in 2 weeks. If you've any questions in the meantime, of course, you can find me on Facebook or write in the comments below, and I will see you then. Bye, guys.